87% of new front-end job posts in 2026 mention Tailwind. Bootstrap, barely 12%. If you've been putting off learning one of these two, that's probably worth paying attention to. But the interesting part isn't just the numbers, it's why this gap has become so large and whether Tailwind is actually the better choice for you. That's what I want to look at in this video. First, I don't think the useful question is which framework is better. That doesn't really help. The better question is which one gives you more value right now. Bootstrap and Tailwind solve a similar problem, but they approach it very differently. With Bootstrap, you get ready-made components. You have a button class, a card class, a navbar class, and so on. You add the classes and you have something working pretty quickly. Tailwind takes a different approach. Instead of giving you a finished component, it gives you small utility classes and lets you build the component yourself. So with Bootstrap you basically get the finished IKEA shelf. With Tailwind you get the wood, the screws and the drill. And that sounds like a small difference, but it has a pretty big impact on how you build and customize things. Because getting something on the screen quickly is one thing, getting it to match a specific design is another. And this is also where I think the job market difference starts to make more sense. The numbers from the beginning are interesting, but they are not the whole story. Let's actually build the same component with both frameworks, because that's where you can really see the difference. Let's stop talking about it and build something. Here is a simple product card. We have an image, a title, a price, and a button. I'll start with Bootstrap. The basic version is very quick. Card, card body, card title, and button classes. That's enough to get a working card on the screen. And honestly, this is one of the things Bootstrap does really well. You can move quickly, especially when you don't have very specific design requirements. But then the client comes back and says, can you make the corners a little more rounded? Then they want a softer shadow. And then they want the button to use a specific shade of green that isn't the default palette. Now things become less convenient. You start adding custom CSS on top of Bootstrap. You override some defaults, deal with specificity, and spend time figuring out why a style you wrote isn't actually being applied. And this is the part that can quietly eat your afternoon. Now let's build the same card with Tailwind. Rounded 2XL, shadow medium, and background emerald 600. I can describe the design directly in the markup using the utility classes. There is no separate override just to fight the framework's default styling. And for this particular component, the result takes less than half the time with no custom CSS file needed. Now, customizing one card isn't exactly a huge problem. But what happens when you are doing this across dozens or hundreds of components? That's where the difference becomes much more important. And this is also where the job market starts to matter. Take a look at this graph. It shows GitHub stars and npm downloads from 2024 through 2026. Tailwind's line keeps moving up. Bootstrap's line is much flatter, and in some months it's actually going down. So why is this happening? I think there are two important reasons. The first one is design systems. A lot of companies are building their own component libraries now. Think about tools and systems like Shadden, Redux, and internal design systems. Many of these are built around Tailwind's utility approach. So Tailwind isn't just another CSS framework you can choose. It's becoming part of the foundation behind how some teams build their own UI systems. The second reason is control. If you are building a product with a custom design, you probably don't want it to look like another Bootstrap template from 2019. Tailwind gives designers and developers a common language for describing the UI very precisely. You can control the spacing, colors, shadows, sizes, and responsive behavior directly where you are building the component. With Bootstrap, you can absolutely customize the design too, but you often start with Bootstrap's defaults and then work your way out of them. And then there is the job market. Here is a real job listing pulled this month. Look at the requirements. It doesn't say CSS frameworks. It doesn't say any CSS framework. It specifically says Tailwind CSS. And according to the numbers we are looking at, this is happening across hundreds of listings. So if you are learning today and your goal is to get hired, that's difficult to ignore. But before you close this video and immediately install Tailwind, there is something important. Bootstrap still makes a lot of sense in some situations. And choosing Tailwind just because it's more popular can also be the wrong decision. This is the part I think gets skipped in a lot of comparisons. Bootstrap isn't suddenly useless. There are still situations where I'd choose it. For example, if you are building a quick prototype or an MVP and design isn't very important yet, Bootstrap can get something usable on the screen very quickly. Or maybe you are working alone and you don't have a designer. You need a UI that looks reasonably good without spending days creating your own design system. Bootstrap is useful there too. Another obvious case is an existing project. If you are maintaining a legacy application that's already built with Bootstrap, rewriting the whole thing in Tailwind just because Tailwind is more popular doesn't make such sense. You probably have more valuable things to do, like shipping the next feature or fixing an actual problem. And the same applies to internal admin panels and dashboards. If the main requirement is simply it works, you may not need a highly customized UI. In those cases, Bootstrap's speed can be more valuable than Tailwind's flexibility. So for me, the decision is actually pretty simple. If you are building something quickly and it doesn't need a lot of custom design, Bootstrap can be a very practical choice. If you are building something that needs a custom design and is going to grow and live for years, Tailwind becomes much more attractive. So what does that mean if you are watching this right now? Let's make it practical. If you are a beginner and you don't have a deadline pushing you, I'd learn Tailwind. One reason is that it forces you to work with real CSS concepts instead of only learning a collection of pre-built component classes. Those CSS skills transfer to other projects and other tools. If you are job hunting, I'd also prioritize Tailwind. The job listings are a pretty strong signal. If you are a freelancer and your main goal is to ship client websites quickly, especially when there isn't much budget for custom design, I wouldn't throw Bootstrap away. Keep it in your toolbox, but start learning Tailwind as well. And if you are working at an agency building custom products, Tailwind is becoming very difficult to ignore. Now, if you decide to learn it, You don't need to spend 6 months on it. Here is a simple 30-day plan. Week 1. Learn the utility classes and the box model, spacing, sizing, colors, and the basic building blocks. Week 2. Focus on responsive design and Tailwind's breakpoints. Week 3. Take 3 components you already know how to build with Bootstrap, maybe a navbar, a card, and a form, and rebuild them in Tailwind. And then week 4, build one complete page from scratch. No copy pasting, no following a tutorial line by line. Actually, build the thing yourself. So that's my take. Bootstrap is still a very good tool when speed and ready-made UI matter. But if you are starting from scratch, especially if you are thinking about your career, Tailwind is the direction I'd put my time into. Bootstrap can get you moving quickly today. Tailwind is more likely to be useful for the kind of front-end work you'll see tomorrow. I'm curious what you are using right now, Bootstrap or Tailwind. Leave a comment and let me know. See you in the next video. Bye.